I think given the current geopolitical situation, I think the USA has rightly adopted a very strong build with India stance. I really, really want to see that, grow 100x, if not 1000x. In a way, sales in US are easy. At least
Why
it's
do you
more
say that?
I think US buyers are very deterministic.
You are essentially a US VC, right? Means
I
that
am a US VC.
you invest 90% of your resources, be it time, money, in the
Yeah.
US market.
Yeah.
What made you take the first trip 5 years back to India, and why have you been coming again and again?
But VCs don't succeed on their own.
Yeah.
Right? It is a confluence of many things happening, which is supply side of founders,
Yeah.
what areas the founders choose to build in, and who do you sell it to. Build in India, sell in the US is not a trivial thing. US go-to-market is a very complex, multidimensional matrix. It's not, one script for...
There is no silver bullet.
There's no silver bullet. You should learn from the Zoho and Freshworks script. That's just one of 10 scripts, the one of 10 markets. Need for software, need for data, need for good applied AI products is going to be massively, and it's still inflecting. And both need to move very quickly.
Yeah. This is Siddharth Aluwalia. Welcome to the Neon Show. Today I have a very good friend with me, Bhaskar Ghosh, partner at 8VC. Bhaskar, you have a very interesting and unique background, right? Would love to dive deep into that first. And because you moved to India very young, right? Just after
Move to USA.
Moved to US very,
Yes.
very early in your career,
Yeah,
right? Just after your
Undergrad.
IIT KGP.
No, I dropped out from IIT KGP and then I did my undergrad at Jadavpur. But
Yeah.
yes, very similar.
And you went there for PhD at Yale.
I did, yes.
And after that, you served 20 years in the best of the tech there.
Anyway, thanks for having me. I know this is short notice. Amazing studio.
Thank you.
You guys are doing amazing stuff. Very, 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 very grateful to be here. I think, as I've told you, I think, so for those of you who don't know, Siddharth and I had a great time at Saster.
Yes.
We became friends and then I went to your party.
Yes.
And I think we met and spent time here
at
this
Leela.
trip at Leela, and then very grateful to be on
thank
the
you
show,
so much.
which I was unaware that it's one of the big shows. So thank you for having me on. Yeah, I mean, journey, I'm an accidental VC, as you know. I'm a partner at a Bay Area firm called 8VC. Yeah, I was fond of computer science, did a PhD, and then spent about a couple of decades in industry. I was very fortunate to write a lot of code, build a lot of products, and also build, was lucky to help build great teams at Oracle, and then Yahoo, and then LinkedIn, and then a tiny fintech company called NerdWallet. So yeah, I think a lot of the experiences at, I would say, Oracle, at Yahoo, shaped kind of my professional worldview and culture. And yes, these were companies which are both pioneering companies, which largely stood the test of time and also had amazing culture internally.
Yeah.
And one of the funny things now, looking back, as I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, is the culture inside Yahoo and LinkedIn was very entrepreneurial. You took initiative and you moved fast, all of that stuff. And all of this, I think, kind of accidentally prepared me. I've had a reverse career in the sense I've gone from larger and larger companies to smaller and smaller companies. And now, as a partner at the firm, I also start companies myself. So, I'm a fake founder also, working on my third startup now. It's been a great journey, and the whole VC thing is a complete accident.
And at what age you became a VC?
This I'm not going to answer, but you should assume you can do math.
Yeah.
After my undergrad and PhD, and then spending about 20 years, so I was not a young spring chicken, while priding myself that I can still outwork you guys. But I think later than most people. And also, I think becoming a VC was accidental. I came to 8VC to start companies mostly, right? And then accidentally wrote a check and then we now have a very flourishing and large practice in both B2B SaaS and enterprise infrastructure software. And, we are very excited about the India-US corridor, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in great detail. But yeah, I think AI, data, cloud, security, infra, open source, all the horizontal themes are seriously important to us. That's what I focus on. And then I do a bunch of B2B SaaS also. In terms of, happy to talk about other aspects of my journey if you have questions. But yeah, I'm very fortunate to have spent the 2 decades building stuff. And, building software, building teams teaches you things that you can't learn in a book. And I see, and the hope is that as we help and support entrepreneurs in their journey to go through startups in different phases, some of what we learned in our past lives will also be useful, whether the entrepreneurs are sitting in Bangalore, Chennai, or they're sitting in San Francisco or New York. That's the hope.
So another thing, what I wanted to ask to you is, before independence or during independence, like the time of independence, Calcutta or Bengal was the hub of scientists. The biggest intellectuals uh, used to come from
Science
Calcutta.
and tech.
Science and tech, both.
Yeah, the first, I think, I might be getting this wrong, but the first Indian-built engineering university was called something else. It's what became Jadavpur.
Yeah.
Right? Like the first, not started by the British, right? Yes, but what you're going to ask me a hard question now?
And I call you a modern scientist, right? Uh, so why has Calcutta or Bengal decreased in producing the talent? Right, today Bengal should have been the tech capital hub of India.
100% agree. You ask a very good and very difficult question. I can give you an outsider's view.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, I think the undergrad engineering colleges like Shibpur and Jadavpur were absolutely world class during our time. And of course, physics, chemistry, math in places like Presidency College and others was absolutely world class. I would say two things have to keep on happening for a city like Calcutta. City like Calcutta became preeminently important because of the British. The Bengalis kind of absorbed stuff, not just English, and thought big. And it was the capital of US Empire outside London till 1919. That late? Okay. And then, they moved it to Delhi.
Yeah.
So the university system laid down by the British, it was like the holding company was Calcutta University, and they had all these amazing colleges below, right? A huge collection, 50 plus. Yeah. So very scalable and thriving system. But for something like this to grow, two things have to happen hand in hand, other than political stability, which Bengal did not see. 60s, 70s saw massive instability. And I would say governing to make sure businesses are growing is extremely important. And I think during the rule that we had for 30 years, that systematically did not go well. While rural agriculture and development in villages, I've heard, and I'm not an economist, I've heard it went very well. But cities, you also have to create new cities. For a large state like West Bengal, you need 3 cities, 4 cities, not one. I think development of urban centers, but development of businesses and attracting capital from other parts of India is very important. I don't think that happened well. And that means employment jobs are not getting created in a non-linear way. The way, say, Hyderabad, Andhra, now Telangana, Karnataka, Bombay actually did, number one. So it's about governance and the political situation. Number two is, and there's partly politics, I think the academic campuses, even by the time we were leaving for the USA, there was too much instability. And government-controlled academic campuses, you have to maintain standards. While there will always be nepotism in a democracy, you have to keep it to 20%. 80% has to be meritocracy. It looks like that is where I think Bengal really did not execute when other states did. I would say the confluence of work culture and attracting business, and kind of not just Jadavpur and Shibpur, but IIT Kharagpur is there. I'm sure a lot of the undergrads coming out of there would have stayed in Calcutta, right, during our time. I would say Bengal missed a major bet at that time, because given, if you look at culturally, love of learning, structured thinking, analytical thinking, all of that is very much there in the culture. So there is absolutely no reason why the initially the IT services hub, and then the product hub of India shouldn't be Calcutta, right? So I have no good answer for you. And if you look at my time right now, I've been coming back to India every year for 5 years now. Have done a few investments, including Rocket Lane, as you know. Much of the network look at this podcast.
Yeah.
Podcast is happening where? Bangalore, mein, na? So Bangalore and Chennai, and even now I went to Bombay. I mean, the interest in working with people like us is overwhelmingly high. Especially, we from 8VC bring a unique background. I really hope that things infrastructure improves in Calcutta, but it's a long journey. I would say it's a multi-generational journey, right? The Bangalore explosion didn't happen in one generation, right? Even when we were in college, I remember Texas Instruments built a major development center here, right? Cisco built a major development center. Analog Devices built a major development center in IIT Madras campus. So you're talking about what, 45 years ago now, or 40 years ago, right? So this is even before my time. I think late 70s, when I couldn't even spell Bangalore. So I think public-private partnership has to come together. And it's a multi-generational thing about those two items. So one is maintaining academic excellence, and one is attracting capital and interest. So
And
that's a long non-answer, but you just hit a sore point in my heart. But
and you mentioned about Bangalore has exploded positively, right? You're spending
amazing. I mean,
most of your time.
I will not comment on the traffic.
Yeah.
I will not comment on the road and city planning. You can comment on it. But yes, go ahead. What's your question?
So my question is, and you mentioned it started happening long back. Why
The seeds were sown a long time back. Yeah.
why did it happen? How did it happen? Can you, from
I
your
don't
perspective?
know. I don't know the answer, but I suspect the local leadership, both at public and private level, and the politicians, they must have worked together. I mean, if you don't create an environment for that, things don't happen accidentally. Because when major companies like the ones I mentioned come in, and they're not making a bet for 5 years, right? They want to be here for 50 plus years. So it's a generational bet. Everybody's intelligent. They're looking at, are these people going to be here today and gone tomorrow? Or more importantly, is the culture of decision making good? Is there just enough transparency? Boss, I'm sure that it was here. In a way, Hyderabad at that time was a more thriving place from the Chandrababu Naidu time. I haven't tracked it. But in terms of the IT hub, in terms of consulting and services industry, whether it's Wipro or... I don't know the split. I suspect if you look at TCS and Wipro and Infosys and, all of these companies, maybe it was an equal split. Maybe Hyderabad was bigger. I don't know the answer. But surely Bangalore and Hyderabad kind of rode ahead, and Bombay didn't need to act because it was already a financial services sector and banking. It was already huge, right? Still is. But I think there was a vacuum in the Indian execution side, and the leaders, public and private leaders of these two cities jumped in, and, gotta give them credit. And I'm guessing some of the politicians really went out of their way to attract investment and create speed, right? I don't know. Is that kind of a little... I'd love to hear what your
my view
memory is.
First, because IT services talent was brought here by companies like Wipro and Infosys. And what happened is, the initial IT services talent, as they got, the best of talent wanted to build their own products. So they started building products here in Bangalore, right? And slowly and steadily, right, because of weather, because of once a place becomes a talent magnet, just like Bay Area, all folks, like I'm a migrant. I come from a place near Delhi, so I came here because of that, right? That it's a talent hub, right? And I think where there's a talent hub and you give freedom to talent,
and all the network effects that Silicon Valley has been seeing for 30 plus years, 40 plus years. The network effects, I think, are beginning to happen here, and 100% agree. The other interesting thing you pointed out that I would love to learn more about is, we had a conference in Goa that I was fortunate to be, and I got to talk to somebody like Nandan Nilekani briefly, and I saw Azim Premji, one of my big heroes. I think he's an amazing guy. It's interesting that the Indian IT services consulting industry has actually reinvented itself over the
Yes.
years, right? It started as this Y2K thing, and then it moved to Java, and then moved to data warehousing and analytics. So it actually is not a monolithic thing. So as they grew their services and they responded to needs in the American and European market, right? That is pretty amazing. And I would say that also probably has contributed to this culture of being able to build more rather than only do services, right? Rather than only run call centers or something.
Agree.
So I suspect someday a book will be written by somebody who knows that.
Who knows the history of
The history of how the internal culture changed. That's number one. And I think they're all operating at massive scale now, right? So I don't know how flexible they are now, but time will tell.
$200 billion of revenue is IT services today.
Yeah. I think what is also interesting for us, external VCs, and I think local VCs is also, towards the middle of the IT journey, services journey in Bangalore and Hyderabad, all these big Silicon Valley firms started coming in, right? I mean, during my time at Yahoo and LinkedIn, I had fairly large teams sitting in Bangalore and a few in Hyderabad. And this was the team's reporting, that was during 2006 through 2014. And at that time, Google was coming in a big way. Facebook came a bit later. Teams were sending in not just their QA and ops functionality, they were beginning to send core product functionality. So I would say that secular wave started happening. And I suspect, now I'm going to suspect, that some of that culture, which came from old-time Yahoo, old-time Google, and many others, some of them also contributed, and I don't have data to prove it, but I'm suspecting that if you look at this fairly pioneering internal companies, which are big now, which are, PhonePe, Razorpay, Zomato, Flipkart, Swiggy, which are serious companies, which are product companies, whether they were mostly B2B, B2C or B2C is a separate issue. These are product companies. And, many other factors contributed to the growth, including, UPI, these are a lot of the government stuff. But the product mentality those things started feeding off of each other, that people from the Googles of the world would leave and I would say the Yahoos of the world would leave and would do the stuff in local companies, which are not US companies. I think that has been a hugely secular and important cultural and network building thing.
I can share a few examples, right? So Amit Somani is a partner at Prime Venture Partners. I used to work at Prime 4 years back. So he was one of the few senior leaders, like SVP or Director Products in Google, who was brought from Google US to Google India in 2008, 2009. Similarly, another VC called Rutvik, right? He's a fund called Inventus. Now they are called Athera. So he was also the part of the same group. Fantastic product leaders. Then Google sent back to India to develop. And obviously, once talent, the best of talent starts happening,
and they stay in India.
Yeah,
that's also an important part, right? I know a lot of the Flipkart talent which came from Yahoo and Google and all of these companies. Many of them have never spent significant time in US. They stayed here.
Agree.
And that is, I think, extremely beneficial to the local ecosystem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And right now, all this wave started also because like folks like Nandan Nilekani, there's stories that once UPI was launched, companies were not willing to adopt it because of just, new railroad is getting built. So he used to visit entrepreneurs in Bangalore. He visited Samir Nigam at that point in time. And PhonePe was really early, and some other companies that can you start building on UPI.
Oh, wow.
This is 2016.
Seriously?
Time
That's
frame.
happened very quickly now.
Yeah.
I think the rate of innovation is growing.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of fundamental stuff around the financial infrastructure that probably started from the Manmohan Singh time and now has really flourished. And, the government has accelerated that stuff. Yeah, that's pretty major. I think it's major for innovation in India, opening up the market and kind of delivering value and financial instruments to people much faster, just with the mobile phone and ID. Yeah.
And
very, very, very positive about that stuff. Yeah.
And you are essentially a US VC, right?
I am a US VC.
You invest 90% of your resources, be it time, money, in the US market.
Yeah.
Right. what made you take the first trip 5 years back to India, and why have you been coming again and again?
I mean, nothing. It's just pretty common sense. I mean, we had heard about the companies that we
Yeah,
mentioned, and we knew that there were very strong companies like Zoho and Freshworks, which were built completely quote unquote natively, right? And I the other part is, remember, I had teams here during my past, but our portfolio in 8VC, in a fairly accelerated way, a lot of the engineering teams are located here. So that movement was already happening. So in a non-investment way, I would say our investments were in Bay Area, but the engineering teams were sitting here.
yeah,
And maybe even a technical co-founder would come and spend time there, and then India head would be
yeah,
hired. That secular movement had already started 5 years ago. So that was, it didn't require deep intelligence on my part. I would say um, the fact that there was energy on the ground, the fact that product companies were being built, the fact that SaaS was exploding was fairly obvious. I mean, also I had the benefit of not being bitten by the um, cycles that even US India venture capital has
yeah,
gone through, right? I would say there has been a cycle where things didn't work.
yeah.
There was an early phase. I don't know when, 2011, 12, 13 or something. I don't exactly know.
Much earlier
Even
than
earlier,
yeah.
2006, 7 then.
2006, and so 2002, 2003 is when Cleaner Perkins and Mayfield started dipping their toes in
I see.
India.
So almost 20 years ago.
Almost 20 years ago.
My
I
goodness.
think people who reaped benefits were those that set up proper shops in India, like Sequoia earlier, or Matrix,
I see.
or Axel. Axel, I think, took the largest bet among that they acquired an Indian VC firm called Erasmic, and now it's in,
Yeah. Well, Shubroto is a very dear friend of
yeah.
mine.
So
Yeah. I know him from my grad school days. Yeah. So, but VCs don't succeed on their own,
yeah,
right? It is a confluence of many things
yes,
happening, which is supply side of founders,
yeah.
what areas the founders choose to build in, and who do you sell it to?
So VCs don't build ecosystem. VCs are catalysts, right? If there is if there is talent, right? I have no shame in.
It's good. Shameful. Well, I'll let you finish.
If there is talent in an area, VCs will help catalyze through their expertise and capital.
Yeah. So you're probably mostly right. Yeah, I mean, I think that I think this also related to the India market growing, overall
Yeah,
optimism, money in the ecosystem. And what we found is we have a lot of friendly firms here. We love a lot of them. At least two of them said, hey, exits in the US market is a little bit hard. We are doing well. Our companies are selling well there, but IPOs are a little bit more infrequent. But we are able to get liquidity from the Indian market because we are also investing in India, right? That was an interesting observation that the outcome sizes are not as large
yeah,
as Snowflake IPO
yes,
in the US, but the fact that the same fund in a judicious way is having this bimodal life
yeah,
where they are able to get liquidity because Indian IPOs are still going,
yeah.
right. All of that is, I would say, contributing. Yeah. So coming back to your question, I don't think there was any deep intelligence needed for me to come. I think the question was, what does success look like for
Yeah.
us at 8VC?
Yeah,
I think,
that's very important. So what would it take for you to invest more and more time in India?
yeah, so I think where I am is I'm still trying to make up my mind. Obviously, we have invested in some fantastic entrepreneurs, a couple of seeds
Yeah,
here, Series A in Rocket Lane. Quality of the founders in these companies is mind-boggling.
yeah,
It so happened some of them have moved to the Bay Area.
yeah,
I just want to call that out. I would say uh, we from 8VC and I personally, we think about what is our unfair advantage and what is the unfair advantage we give people.
yeah.
Right now, where we are is we are very good friends with a lot of the seed funds and early
Sure.
phase funds,
Yes.
including Neon.
Yes. Thank
Right?
you.
Yes. And we want to stay that way. We want to probably write small checks into early rounds and do Series A's for companies which really want to work with us. It's not going to be an easy journey. There is enough money in the Indian ecosystem,
Yeah.
more than enough money. And there's enough money in Indian-led funds in the Bay Area, which is also working in the
Yes.
Indo-US corridor, right?
Yeah.
So I would say I am at a crossroads of thinking, do I hire somebody here? Do I hire a team here? Right now, I don't think the answer is going to be yes. The answer may change. So we'll do a couple of things in terms of strategy. One is we'll keep on building our technical presence here, because
Okay.
at a personal level, that is my unfair advantage, right? Given my build background, the technology background. So we'll keep on having an 8VC CTO council here. We'll keep on doing this highly technical events here, and that's one. The other part is our portfolio companies are majorly moving their engineering teams to India, as I mentioned. Large number in Bangalore, increasingly large number in Hyderabad, Chennai, and we see Pune as a hub that's growing very rapidly, and maybe someday Gurgaon and Noida also. I think we're going to really double, triple down on that. I think that's going to be a very important thing for us. It also lets us be part. I personally like to be part of the technical network.
Got it.
People who are the CTO VPs, who are the chief architects, who are actually building software, complex software, and technical founders. So that is kind of our forte. I think that network building will continue. For that, I don't need a partner sitting here. Our team and I will come back twice a year. So we'll maintain a strong technical presence here. We'll partner with funds like Neon and a few others that we love. Write small checks initially in the hope of supporting entrepreneurs and then leading a large Series A. I think that's kind of how it's going to pan out. The other part we're seeing is, other than the technology part, is build in India, sell in the US is not a trivial thing. We did an event last week, one of our friendly funds, Special and I, we did an event about US go-to-market is a very complex, multidimensional matrix. It's not, one script for...
there is no silver bullet.
There's no silver bullet. You should learn from the Zoho and Freshworks script. That's just one of 10 scripts, the one of 10 markets. And the other thing we're seeing is at least one founder who is involved in go-to-market at some point in time, early in the company cycle, has to spend time either in New York or in San Francisco. There is no alternative for that. And when you and I went at SaaStra, we talked about that. And building that network out is what we are helping with our entrepreneurs. And I think that value add is a very important value add from an 8VC San Francisco perspective. And, I don't know if you know, a lot of entrepreneurs who we haven't even invested in. We, if it's coming from one of the funds that we are friendly with, my team and I get requests all the time. Hey, can you guys give intros? And we do that without any, selfish interest, knowing that we may or may not do a deal there. That we will keep on doing because we feel it's just the right thing to do, being entrepreneur first. And so US go-to-market helping in a strategic way is a very important unfair advantage for us. And 8VC has the benefit of being a multi-vertical firm. We have very strong investments in and networks in supply chain, logistics, insurance, fintech, health IT, bio IT, defense. And that is probably an unfair advantage we bring to the table. And we are happy to help entrepreneurs from here with that. So I think that's how we're going to approach it for now.
And the successful outcome for you would be companies like Rocketline, where you led Series A, or IPOing something like that?
Yeah, I don't know. IPO, I mean, obviously we are in the business of returning money to LPs. So some sort of liquidity event. But in terms of midterm, yes, being able to participate in pre-seeds and seeds with you guys, but leading A's at the minimum B's where we can build up ownership, because that's important for us and our LPs. And, investing in high TAM areas, right? Where the TAM is large enough so that if a company executes well, scales well, builds the right flywheel for product and for sales, there will be an outcome in mind. And whether it's through an IPO or a large acquisition, that part I could. But yes, that's the journey.
And you and I had a previous discussion that Indians, SaaS entrepreneurs, or maybe we can say the product entrepreneurs, tech entrepreneurs, they're not building enough differentiated products. Would love your perspective on that.
That's a hard question. I think there's a macro phenomenon which us VCs in enterprise software have to be cognizant of. So if I broadly separate out, this is a broad, if I broadly separate enterprise software out, let's ignore vertical SaaS for now. It's a huge area, collection of, let's keep that aside. But just for horizontal software, let's say there is enterprise infrastructure software, all things around data, AI, DevOps, security, cloud. And then there is departmental SaaS, which is sales, marketing, HR, so on and so forth. Things are crowded. Us VCs have written a lot of checks in the last 10 years. It's not just about the India-US corridor. Generally, I think from the India side, I don't think enough is happening in the infrastructure side yet. That takes a certain confluence of factors that hasn't yet happened in India. But SaaS side, I think, departmental SaaS side, there's a lot happening. And there's a lot of money chasing a few entrepreneurs. I think building SaaS now, departmental SaaS now, given cloud services, given open source, given APIs, the engineering side is a little bit easier than it was 10, 15 years ago. Right? So in a way, it's easier to start a company. So then when you start a company, what differentiation do you think about? Off the bat, people don't have a differentiation in go-to-market or distribution, right? And a side comment is, one of the reasons we stay interested in infrastructure is infrastructure in those 4, 5, 6 tiers. Open source distribution remains an unfair advantage if you pick the right open source project, right? Our company Acrel, which came out of a very successful LinkedIn open source project called Data Hub. If you look at their unfair advantage, they have an amazing, technical founder set, amazing engineering team. But distribution is because of initially bottom-up open source working, network effects, right? Coming back to SaaS, it is not an easy time. It's not just about Indian entrepreneurs. Let me make it, even in the Bay Area, even in Seattle, and we see companies coming from New York and Seattle also, largely from Bay Area. It is not trivial to think of differentiation upfront, right? So where will differentiation be when things are crowded? First thing to think about is, as people think about think about it, how will very deep, sticky, valuable departmental SaaS companies be built? Well, you have to capture a few workflows which has high economic value. Maybe high difficulty also, because then not enough. But somehow you have to make something around data work. Lots of data has been brought in, integrated, the whole Palantir story. Palantir was founded by the founder of 8VC. So then you start thinking, as you work with more data and you win more workflows and people pay for it, very sticky SaaS companies tend to be built where there is some platform and data moat placed somewhere. If you think about ServiceNow, they're still sitting on this data moat, which is their CMDB. If you think of Salesforce, they're still sitting on what is essentially a database, which is their CRM database. Same is true for Zendesk. Same is true for ServiceNow. Same is true for Same is true for Workday. If you look at Rippling, while they have built common data models so that they can move from department to department, ultimately they're trying to build a data moat. Now, how such companies are possible? You can start with a wedge. I would ask those questions. That shouldn't dissuade entrepreneurs from doing B2B SaaS. And I say it again, it's not about India or US founders, any founder. But what we have found interesting is second-time founders in these areas tend to have thought of that a bit more, who actually played there. We see a little bit of more like insights around, okay, I'm going to go in with this wedge use case. I know the economic value and the budget geometry I'm going to hit. But finally, I know I'm going to go after that other cross-sell use case and I'll get a larger data footprint growing. Probably thinking like that is going to help. And we love to see that from an 8VC perspective. We love to see that. That's kind of, I'd put it in that positive light. And I would say having those insights are harder. And I'll make a judgment call now. Having those insights are harder for first-time founders, because you really have to go build in these departments to know what is true, what is not true, how are budgets deployed, what the difficulties of workflows are, and do you even need a source of truth system which is different? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I would say we from 8VC like to hear entrepreneurs who have thought about this a bit at the beginning. That's about it. And then, distribution in SaaS, departmental SaaS tends to be hard. If you look at Rocket Lane, what Sri and his founders, his co-founders have done is they have built a community around them.
Yeah.
Right? They've almost tried to create a category, right? And I mean, you know a lot
Yes.
about, Sri extremely well. Is that a pattern? Don't know the answer, but that's an interesting thing to observe. Like if you want to go
Yes.
play in SaaS, do you build an adoption community there?
Yeah.
How do you tell the story? Look, ultimately, secularly, the need for departmental software will become paramount unless Gen AI comes and we don't need software
Yeah.
anymore. That'll probably happen after my career is over. Good luck to you guys. You guys come back and tell me the story. Need for software, need for data, need for good applied AI products is going to be massively, and it's still inflecting. That need in departmental personas and budget is going to be huge.
Yeah.
It's already huge. It's only going to get bigger. So great software companies will be built in these areas. The reason I went on for a long time is the next level thinking by the founders is going to be very important around the mode, around go-to-market, around distribution, around maybe a play around data.
Yeah.
We like to see that. That's all. And does that make sense? I'd be curious, brief thoughts from your side.
It makes sense. I think where you play and where Neon plays, we'll see how it shapes it. But our half of our portfolio and the folks that you have bagged, right, in India, Clearfield and Rocket Lane, they're all second time founders. Like we have bagged Atomic Work,
Very, very
GTM,
important observation. Yes.
GTM Buddy, FinCent, and like out of a 50 portfolio
Amnic
companies,
also.
50 portfolio companies, half of us are portfolio second time founders who have
100%.
built and sold SaaS, and now they understand the TAM problem really well, the enterprise insights problem, department insights problem really well. So they are taking time to interact with customers before even writing any code. They're traveling to US, spending time with customers, organizing dinners
100%.
for their customers. I think this insight to first time founders comes quite late.
I see.
And we say obviously, right, large companies will be built by first time founders. There's no doubt, right?
No doubt.
No doubt. But the incubation period of the first 3-4 years period journey would be, we have seen it tough. We have historically seen out of 50 portfolio companies, 15 are above 1 million. 2/3 of them are by first time founders, 1/3 of them are second time founders. And those companies above 1 million by first time founders started in 2016-17 timeframe. They did the last pivot in 2020. That worked, and that is helping them to take them to few million dollars.
Yeah. By the way, there are two things I would never discount. One is Indian hustle and ingenuity.
Yeah.
Do not discount that. So do not discount that. Second is, I think, the ability of younger founders to have high EQ and high learning ability is, I mean, think about it, man. Look at Google, look at Airbnb, name it.
Yeah.
I mean, think of Facebook. I mean, you're talking about fairly major generational companies which came from very young founders, and the ability of young people to pick up signals and adjust and move faster than anybody else. From a personal and 8VC point of view, that not going to discount any of that. So
first time founders are hungrier, second time founders are wise. So you need to have a combination.
And both need to move very quickly.
Yeah, both need to move very quickly. So Bhaskar, you have spent almost 30 years in the US now. I have a fight with myself, right? That what if Bhaskar would have stayed in India, right? It's an analogy I draw from the movie.
Average IQ would go down.
This is from the movie Swadesh, in which Shah Rukh Khan, who was a NASA scientist, came back and then worked in ISRO. And he was moved by that one dialogue that अपनी चौखट का दिया पड़ोसी का घर रोशन कर रहा है. So like my lamp is lightening the neighbor's house.
So your question is, what would have happened?
What would happen? And this is a question not just for Bhaskar. This is the question for all the brilliant, talented IITians that are working in the US. Right? How could we retain them? What could stop the reverse brain drain?
Yeah. So I think It's a marketplace question. I think if you look at the speed and the phases that India as an economic entity, cultural entity, and a nation has gone through, right? India has made amazing, startling progress since 1947, right? If you look at the first one third or half of India, when the whole, India had to build itself an infrastructure,
Yeah.
its own infrastructure, whether it's power, whether it's making sure that you don't have famines.
Yeah.
Think about it, right? India hasn't had a
Yeah.
famine in that's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Thinking of the British created famines in India 3 times. I
Yes.
don't know if you guys have read about all
And the
that, right?
Bengal famine was a
And Bengal famine, Madras famine, and it's done by British and Indians together. But
Yeah.
that's a complex religious question. But India was not self-sufficient
Yes.
from a food perspective. So from power, food, education institutions, all of the stuff we take granted now
Yeah.
didn't exist. So the first 20, 30, 40 years of state controlled, centralized planning was probably necessary
Yeah.
that Pakistan, Sri Lanka probably didn't do in the same way,
Yeah.
right? So I think India has gone through these phases.
Yeah.
And in our generation, so I would say I'm one generation before you, if not more. I think uh, when we graduated from computer science, there's very little opportunity. We had an on-campus interview, HCL, and I didn't even know.
This is Jadavpur you are talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah. No, I did one interview. I did 2 interviews in India. I did an IIM Joka interview, and I did a HCL interview.
What is IIM Joka?
IIM Calcutta.
Okay.
Joka is the name of the little town outside of Calcutta that Indian Institute of Management is, right?
Okay.
It's one of the top.
Yeah.
At my time, I am Ahmedabad and I'm the
It still
Calcutta
is.
were the two top.
I am Bangalore, Ahmedabad, and
So, I had a job offer for 2,240 rupees per month. I still have the offer letter.
But you had the MB offer or job offer from IIM Calcutta?
No. I had a job offer from HCL
Okay. Yeah.
and a job offer. There were very few jobs. So the economic opportunities did not exist. So that's one. The other part is I was always interested in computer science, so at a micro level. And going and doing a PhD in a good place in USA was always like studying algorithms was my passion, right? So it's a very micro thinking. There was no major thinking there. And that time, it wasn't that easy to find a professor, get into IIT Madras or Kanpur, the only two places. Even Bombay, IIT Bombay CS is not like now, it's like world's top department. So in our generation, the opportunity was not there.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that for somebody like us, a group of us who wanted to study. So it's a micro decision, right? It was not like you're running away from India, you're running towards something. It so happens that a confluence of hard work, history, and all the infrastructure that post-independence India built in a painstaking way is the reason why the industry, including the IT industry that we talked about previously in this podcast, developed. And then the network effect that you and I just discussed happened of how that journey took 20 years, right? Now, I have a lot of amazing friends who did their PhDs and came back as faculty.
Okay.
A lot of friends. And they are very well-known professors in IIT Kanpur, IIT Delhi, IIT Bombay, IISc Bangalore. They have started institutions like literally. Yeah. So I would say I didn't want to come back and become a professor. Academia was not interesting. So that's why I wanted to go to industry. So I think it's a generational question of opportunities that were available to us. That's the easy part of the answer. The hard part of the answer is our generation was 1 or 2 generations after independence, maybe 2.5 or 3 generations. I don't know if this was this idealistic generation which was there to build the nation the way our parent generation was. So we were kind of in the middle, lost generation. You guys are a generation where India is the assertive India. India has infrastructure at all levels that if you choose to build stuff here, you have the opportunity to.
Yeah.
You're not having to build that opportunity to build. So I would say in that way, now if you look at God's hand in all this, it so happened that our generation which went to Silicon Valley has turned out to be phenomenally important. And so look at the number of CEOs in the
Yes.
top 10 software companies of USA. Guess what? Yeah. All actually born and studied in India. Right? And
None of them are ABCDs, American born.
okay. Yes. I would say I don't have a good answer for you then, except I make a microscopic decision. But I'll be honest with you, the reason I will and I have put in effort in the India-US corridor is very much that, given what we were able to learn in Silicon Valley and be successful and establish ourselves. I mean, a lot of us, do we really need to work? We probably don't. If we lead a simple life, we don't, right? We were lucky to go through IPOs and stuff. But part of it is to leverage the excitement and the opportunity in the India-US corridor. But I'll be honest with you, on top of that, while I'm a US citizen, I want to contribute to things in India, right? I want to contribute to tech entrepreneurship. I also want to contribute to rural infrastructure and NGOs. Both are passions for me. So I would say I don't have a good answer for you, but about the backward-facing question that you asked, but I have a pretty damn good answer for you in a forward-facing way, that a lot of the reason I'm sitting here and doing this is not just because I'm a Silicon Valley VC, is because I want to really, 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 enjoy working with you guys and entrepreneurs here and, make some contribution to the future of India.
And would there be a future date in India that you would think of packing your bags there and coming back?
That's a harder question. It's possible. I mean, my wife is American, so it's not fair. And my son is American. While they both are ethnically Indian, they are born and brought up there. It is up to them to decide if they're going to spend time here. So from a split family perspective, it's not an easy logistical thing. It all depends. It depends. If we start some things which requires me to be here in person more, why not? I think, it would be just an amazing opportunity to be spending more time in the cities you discussed. I mean, I was in Bombay after so many years just 2 weeks ago. The energy of the city is amazing. Just being there for 2 days and meeting people, just the positivity. And, Bangalore, I've already told you, right? I just feel so excited being here. Even in the event we did last night, right? We did one with Stellaris. I stayed, I don't know, I think I had to stay till like 11 to answer questions. But if people are doing all kinds of startups, they're trying to solve hard problems. And, I was fortunate. But I'm saying the energy that comes back from the young entrepreneurs is very attractive to me. So if luck and destiny have it, yes, why not? So I'm not writing that off.
Earlier in a conversation, you mentioned that SaaS is exploding in India. Can you share some numbers, some stats, or your perspective on that, even emotional perspective? Why do you feel that?
So is it exploding? I would say from a pure numbers that you will have access to, I don't. The sheer number of deals that I've taken calls around first time and second time founders in just departmental SaaS, it is huge. I mean, it is almost equal to the number of departmental SaaS deal meetings I've taken from founders in the Bay Area.
Okay, equal.
I mean, and I have said no to a lot of meetings even then. So sheer number. Now the question is, why is that happening? It's a more interesting question. I think just the optimism and the confidence in thinking that I can build something and that I know a certain departmental problem, that is inflecting. And people have, if you look at the Freshworks, what you call the Freshworks Mafia, and you know them extremely, you're an investor in some of them. I mean, it's a generational company built from Chennai, just like Zoho, and hats off, man. I mean, this is what Girish and his cohort have done. Not just the outcome, but the culture they have built inside those two companies is phenomenal, right? It's almost like old-time Yahoo kind of culture, highly entrepreneurial. Look at the number of people coming out of their starting companies. That means they have developed confidence to stand on their own. Second, they have confidence that they've learned some subdomain really well. Otherwise, people don't do that. So I think we're almost in the second to third wave of people coming out where it's not just, also the other thing we really love is it's not just from the top schools. The entrepreneurs, I mean, if you look at Freshworks and Zoho, it's almost like they didn't hire from the top school. They
Yeah,
hired from this
they neglected top schools
neglect-
because
and this from these real hustling, cultures. And Girish talked about it in a very deep way when he came to Joe's house. We hosted him in Woodside.
Okay.
Girish and his, Joe and I hosted Girish
okay,
back in the day. When was it? Like 6 months ago, a year ago, I forgot. And he talked about that. He talked about how he himself didn't go to an IIT and he hired from these non-IIT. And it's a very powerful narrative, right? Very counterintuitive. And I would say there is supply side economics playing out in the courage and the skill set of founders. And it looks like the network effect of knowledge has happened in SaaS. Hasn't yet happened in infra. So that's also important to point out. You're not seeing even a small fraction of that number happen in AI infra, data infra cloud. Not yet. It'll happen. Do not count out. As I said, do not count out India. But I think dev tools, it's happening a little bit more because there are about 6 to 7 million programmers in India. So even from like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities, open source is happening. But I think coming back to your question, there are certain root drivers which have come true.
Yeah.
And, that's partly what I think is the reason.
And you see the next generation of Indian entrepreneurs. You have observed this generation, right? From Girish to, let's say, Shri from Rocket Lane. The next generation of Indian entrepreneurs having certain edge or better in any way to a certain scale, I say, not by a wedge.
I have been very impressed. I don't know the generational divide, but I have talked to a lot of entrepreneurs who are not even investors in, because we have built a good brand here, built a good set of relationships here. A lot of founders have come and talked to us or talked to me. I have found certain like deepening insights about the practicality of wedge use cases and go-to-market. And that doesn't happen from reading a book. I think that is happening from a network effect of knowledge and word of mouth.
Yeah.
What was your question again?
So my question was the next generation of entrepreneurs.
How are they?
Are they better? Are they different?
I think, I don't know if they're better or different. They are surely the hustle, and they're coming from, number one, coming from a wide variety of schools, not just the top IITs. That's great. Hustle in terms of the art of the possible is what I'd say. Like, oh man, the number of founders I've talked to, like something around like product analytics, something around, video infrastructure, something around, they know use cases and have already seen somebody trying to sell into that use case before. So I would say this, as I said, wedge use case, go to market, the tribal knowledge has grown in leaps and bounds. And I think I see that as a huge differentiator in the founders coming in now. They are not starting from scratch. Maybe they were junior engineers and junior managers and programmers or product managers in successful late stage startups, not just IPO companies. And they are bringing a lot of use case confidence and the confidence that if I build this and this, I'll be able to sell it. So that's number 2. Number 3, which I think is just beginning to happen, is that these same founders have decided that as they build the initial versions of the product and maybe even sell into the late stage Indian startup mafia a bit here to get a little bit of product market fit going, they have to move to the US, right? That is almost a given in the conversation. That was not true 5 years ago.
Agreed.
Surely not true. So I have seen these 3 things change.
And since we talked about it, what would it take to produce 100 Freshworks like outcome from India? We are talking about B2B SaaS, B2B SaaS on infra and all the domains that.
I think we talked about the wedge use cases. We talked about data moat. We talked about owning workflows. I think all of them have to be true. 2 more things have to be true. I think supply side economics of founders we have talked about. I think ability to span leadership across US and India. Look, we are 8VC is not doing India market right now. So I don't want to comment on that. It's about building in India, sell in Europe.
Exactly. Like that's why we're saying Freshworks like models.
Fair enough. I think building relationships, networks, and flywheels in go-to-market in the US knowing which part of your inside or direct sales is going to sit here. What is your top of the funnel?
Yeah.
How much will it be India? What has to sit there? For high ACVs, techniques change.
Yeah.
Those flywheels have to happen. I think we are in the first quarter of 4, to use an American
Yeah.
term, right? First innings of 4 innings, I would say. That has to grow. I think we are a little bit away from that formalized flywheel knowledge. So that's number one. Number two is TAM and market readiness has to be there. It's right now the US market around SaaS multiples is going through a much needed fresh look at it.
Yeah.
People are asking questions about unit economics, about margins. Maybe we have now on the US side we've been much more much harder in asking those questions. So things will soften a little bit. We're going to be a little bit more gray area. But I think ultimately businesses have to show a path towards profitability. That's a fair requirement probably. I would say all of this will only be enabled by market pull. So certain classes of software have to become extremely important in departmental SaaS. Those are the two secular things that are needed. How do you predict that? I don't know the answer. One is based on hard work, which is the flywheel of sales, go to market. How does certain classes of software in certain departments, whether it's departmental SaaS or automation or whatever, I think that's a harder question to anticipate. But I think those two things have to also happen for 100 outcomes like Freshworks to happen.
Another important question that I have for you is, right, you are sitting and also building as a founder, right, at the heart of a AI revolution, right? And our audience has a pretty generic knowledge of AI. Can you share what is happening in AI today and what role India is playing uh, as a builder, not as a consumer?
Yeah, I would say AI has been around for a while. So I would say machine learning AI, the machine learning part of AI has been used and democratized from the Silicon Valley companies, Google and Yahoo primarily, and then Facebook, LinkedIn, others that you know about. In the context of primarily initially B2B2C and B2C. Because you needed this real-time stuff, you need recommendations and all the use cases.
That has been there for the last 20 years.
It has been perfected. I think one important secular thing has happened in the regulated industries like finance, like banking, like financial services, little bit of healthcare, is increasing usage of AI in use cases inside, so that the enterprises have set up the business processes, the development processes, and the talent to focus on usage of primarily machine learning, maybe a little bit of deep learning, in the context of top line and profit. That is very much here to stay. So we're probably in the second innings of that revolution of 4. I think, as you guys know, in the last 6 to 12 months, this whole family of AI models called large language models, which is based on hyperscalers, essentially crawling the whole universe, and building kind of time series predictive kind of models, and enabling English language as a query, essentially as a domain language to query things. So for certain use cases, it is just showing mind-boggling results. Obviously, all these use cases like, content in marketing, like code through copilots, like intelligent decision trees and interactions during, customer interactions, and, many more. Maybe someday even business analytics, how do you query a data warehouse? Lot of these enterprise use cases are becoming very important. Anything around workflow automation, where there is unstructured data flowing through it, right? Think of it as RPA version 3.0. All of these use cases we anticipate will be profoundly impacted by this whole revolution in foundation models and generative AI. Now the question, I'll come to your India question. I don't know that answer very well. So it is looking increasingly likely that with the usage of LLMs and family of models, a lot of these business processes and a lot of these pieces of work that are happening today in enterprise are going to be impacted. Now you can start thinking about, what does it mean for VCs? What does it mean for the large hyperscalers like
Yeah.
OpenAI and Google and Amazon and, who are building these huge models? How will current industry, SaaS industry use it? I think it remains to be seen where the VC investable piece is going to be. It's not clear to us. We are working on it. We're thinking about it. Maybe even trying to start companies in these areas. Is it going to be is there opportunity in automation, right? In many verticals. I think that remains to be seen. In terms of India, I would say some parts of Indian IT services and consulting sector, which has reinvented itself over the years. We mentioned it early in this discussion. It would be exciting to see how they use it. I think you'll see a revolution there, and Indians there are enough technically good people sitting there, and there are very creative and hustling people. I am excited to see that part. That instead of us thinking they'll be disrupted, I suspect Indian services and consulting sector will start using generative AI and will actually come up with new stuff. That's one.
Yeah.
Well, that may or may not be VC investable, right? So I'll keep that aside, but I'm very excited by that. In terms of AI-enabled products, in terms of infrastructure for generative AI and machine learning, we haven't, I think that requires a certain wave of talent and network effects to happen. And I'm hoping funds like Neon, back entrepreneurs, which actually cause that. And I think some of that tier of software requires probably much stronger interaction between academia and industry. If you look at a lot of the contributions of AI, while it is, earlier contributions used to come from IBM and Bell Labs, a lot of contributions have come from Facebook and Google, as you see. But I think a lot of the roots of AI came from academia, just like roots of internet came from there. I think some magic has to happen in the Indian ecosystem, in the confluence of academia, government labs, private and public sector, and companies for some of that innovation to come. I don't know enough to bet on it or tell you when it's going to happen. But coming back to the main point I made, I think in the consulting and IT services sector, you're going to see some really interesting stuff coming from India. That is my bet for today's podcast.
Thanks. And coming on to conclusion of a podcast, right? Indian entrepreneurs have been moving to the US, right? Either to start companies or to build their go-to-market arms, right?
Yeah.
What are the few things that you think we can learn faster from entrepreneurs in the West to succeed there?
Let me make one secular point. I think given the current geopolitical situation, I think the USA has rightly adopted a very strong build with India stance. I really, really want to see that, grow 100x, if not 1000x. And I will do anything I can to increase that. So free flow of talent in both directions is really important.
Yeah.
Visa stuff is really important. And I hope both sides can make that happen well.
Yeah.
So that for a VC and a builder like me, really want to see that happen, that people can move, not just goods and software, people can move back and forth. Because Indian
just want to make a
entrepreneurs-
statement. I got my visa after 2 years. I applied in 2021, got in 2023.
I am being put on the spot and I have no answer for you. And I hope that the US administration, that it gets accelerated, because I don't see any reasons for Indian entrepreneurs to just go to India, to go to US and never come back. I think opportunity is growing so fast. There should be very, very fluid movement of talent between the two countries, number one. Number two, I think some interesting thing has come about selling in India versus selling in US. I think, in a way, sales in US are easy. At least
why
it's
do you
more
say that?
I think US buyers are very deterministic.
What does it mean?
Meaning, if you engage in enterprise software sale and somebody tells you, and I'm now co-founder, funder of a company called Anzena, security company. And go-to-market is hard. But the beauty of doing this company is, I'm in the room when the pilots are getting defined. The acquiring side is saying, if you do this, yes, I'm going to pay you 50K, 70K. And that is largely 99.99% true. So
they don't bluff, you are saying?
Yeah, not only bluff, they are very matter of fact. they are not. This is not a nepotism-based sale just based on relationship.
Yeah.
Of course, in high ACV, relationships always matter, but here the culture is, hey, this is what I need. It's almost like a consumer culture.
Yeah.
People are not afraid of spending money
Yeah.
if they know what they're getting back
Yes.
for it. So in a way, the US sales are more cut and dried. From what I've heard, I've never sold software in
Yes.
India. I think selling software in India is still not easy. One of my companies, Yugobyte, I don't know if it's public. We just, we've done some major deals with HDFC.
Okay.
Yay, right? So I learned a little bit about how the process went and how it was different from US process. But I would say US sales, once you have the right network, the right collateral, the right integrations for your implementation, your product has to be good.
Yeah.
I mean, let's assume you're at the table because you have a decent product. But I think when you have that checklist, it's pretty straightforward. I think doing business in US is straightforward. That is the reason US keeps on innovating.
Yes.
It's very matter of fact. If you do this A, B, and C, unless stock market goes down and all the requisitions are blocked, right? So I would say that's probably important. I think culturally, just be brave, be open, be very transactional, saying what are the things you need, and here I'm going to provide it to you. So I see Indian founders growing there very quickly. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think as the first part becomes more true with this back and forth thing, that Indian founders are going there and spending 3 weeks every 2 months in the Bay Area or New York, this will accelerate extremely quickly. And I think Neon, you and I talked about this after your dinner.
Yeah.
One of the superpowers you are trying to bring to the table is you have this unnamed but important network there where your founders from here can easily
land
talk to,
there.
right? You can talk to people who they can learn from.
We have what we are Neon is trying. I was there in US for 2 months. So 1 month in Bay Area, 1 month in almost like in New York. And what I was trying to build for Neon is for our founders to have a LP network who is ready to give them time and guide them on enterprise sales.
Absolutely. And part is about the methodology of sales. Part is about, hey, I will buy this software. Something, right? Other than that, it's not going to be that hard. I think so that's one, so sales. There's a third part, which is probably more subjective part, which is about building teams. So independent of being in India, if the founders are truly from Bangalore or from here, even in the first 5-10 hires, they're creating a virtual or explicitly articulated culture of the company. As you grow, inevitably, people keep R&D here. Maybe a product manager is hired there, but you start growing sales there. You hire a VP of sales at some point in time. I think it's very important as the founders go back and forth to learn that part, which part is kind of American. How do you have a multicultural company across the borders will still believes in the same value, customer first, whatever the values are, which is company specific. And for a bunch of non-Indian senior execs to report to an Indian, I'm sure Freshworks has gone through the same thing, right? I would say these are the kind of generational things that through proof of numbers is going to happen. I would say those are a few insight. Those are a few hints I drop that need to accelerate and change. So we talked about at least 3 things: visa and free flow of people. We talked about the methodology of US sales, mid-market to top market, and the other is building cross-border teams, right? And the kind of teams we built from Yahoo and LinkedIn was US to India. This is India to US. And those books need to be written. We would like to see more founders who are getting Series Bs and Cs done through US VCs, spending time there, articulating that, right, with you and with other, in the network as to, here is how we are managing these teams. That's going to be a fascinating journey.
And I can add one point to that, which couldn't have been possible before, right? I think why the timing for the Indian enterprise SaaS is right from India to US. I'll take one of our portfolio companies example, SpotDraft. They are about to touch 10 mil ARR in a few months. What they did is now they're hiring Indians who worked 20 years in the US, let's say as head of sales for example, at Coinbase or at Meta,
That's very clever.
right? So because these guys know how to do large sales, right?
In the US context.
In the US market, and they are Indians who like shifted in the US 20 years back, and now they're happy jumping into Indian originated companies because they have seen successes, right?
Yeah, that's probably an intermediate stage to what I said. Look, ultimately, success. That I would say that's the second quarter of four of success for Indian companies, where you're hiring Indians who have moved there and worked there and successful. I still think for like the real success will be for India to US companies is you're actually being able to hire and maintain
Americans.
culture across many nationalities and ethnicities. I would say there are examples, right? Tata has done that very well, right? And just one example. I'm sure other companies have, but that company example comes to mind. They've acquired serious companies in the auto space, right? Steel, I think steel companies have done that from here.
Yeah.
And maybe there's stuff to learn for the software industry from the Tatas of the world also.
Agree.
But to me, I'll be very proud when that day comes that India defined, India.
The best
inception is
American
here.
talent, for example, wants to work for Indian originated companies.
Yeah, that would be like amazing.
Yeah.
That would be truly make all of us very excited, proud. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bhaskar. I really enjoyed our conversation.
I did not prepare, and you guys made me comfortable, and you have an amazing group and staff,
you.
and it's so much positive energy in the room. It was a pleasure. It was
Thank
a
you so
pleasure,
much.
and hope we do more stuff together.
Yes,
You,
absolutely.
me, and 8VC and Neon.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.